Welcome back to my second video on hormones. Now this time we are going to continue from the insulin and glucagon. Now the endocrine gland that is responsible for the secretion of insulin and glucagon is called the pancreas. The pancreas. Now the pancreas sits close to the duodenum of the small intestine, and then it is involved in both digestive and endocrine functions, in that it functions as a digestive organ as well as an endocrine organ. Okay, now we are basically going to be looking at the endocrine function, talking about how it secretes insulin and glucagon. Now there are special cells that are found in the pancreas. They are called islets of Langerhans. Islets of Langerhans. Now, the alpha cells of islets of Langerhans, they are involved in the secretion of glucagon. Okay, then while the beta cells of islets of Langerhans are involved in the secretion of insulin. Now let me quickly explain the function of insulin and glucagon. Both of them, they are antagonistic in nature, in that they act in opposing areas. Now, for the insulin acts when there is an elevation of the blood glucose level or sugar level. So it tends to process excess blood sugar, which is in the form of glucose, to glycogen. Then while this glucagon helps to convert glycogen to glucose in a case where there is low blood sugar. So the twist is this: when there is insulin, there will be low glucose. So I can use a seesaw to represent it. Now let's say we have insulin here. Let's say there is insulin and you have glucose here. This is what happens. When there is a high concentration of insulin, there will be a reduction in the blood glucose. When there is a reduction in insulin, there will be an increase in the blood glucose. You get it? So now the thing is this: insulin, when there is excess insulin in the body, it is known as hyperinsulinemia. When there is excess of insulin, and this hyperinsulinemia leads to a drop in the glucose, which is called hypoglycemia. Okay. Now hypoglycemia is a condition that results when there is excess of insulin. That's hyperinsulinemia. And vice versa, in that when there is a reduction in the level of insulin, which leads to a condition known as hypoinsulinemia, of course it leads to a condition called hyperglycemia. And what is hyperglycemia? A high blood glucose level or sugar level. Okay, now what are the conditions that are associated with this hyperglycemia? Of course, when we say high blood glucose level, we are referring to the fact that the person will be suffering from a condition known as diabetes mellitus. That's DM for short. And what are the conditions that are associated with diabetes mellitus? 1, there will be excessive taste. 2, there will be excessive hunger. 3, there will be excessive urination. And 4, there will be a very high blood pressure. And ultimately, if not properly checked, it can lead to death. Okay. Then in the case of the hyperinsulinemia that leads to hypoglycemia, which is also considered to be low blood sugar level, this can as well lead to death if not properly checked too. Okay, so that's that about that. Then again, if there is a high level of insulin, there will be a low level of glucagon. That's it. So it's just like you having another seesaw where you have insulin here, and and then you have glucagon here. Remember I said that both of them they act antagonistic to each other. So if this one is elevated, then this one will drop. Then if this one drops, then this one becomes elevated, because if this one processes or acts when there is a high blood glucose level, then this one will act when there is a drop or a low blood glucose level. And of course, it is actually what helps to break down glycogen into glucose, thus elevating the level of blood glucose. So that's just that about the function of insulin and that of glucagon. Let's proceed to looking at adrenaline. Now, looking at adrenaline, adrenaline is actually seen to be an hormone that is produced or secreted by the adrenal gland. Now, the adrenal gland has two parts. Now, we have the adrenal medulla, that's the inner part, and we have the adrenal cortex, that's the outer part. So the medulla is what secretes two hormones called adrenaline, and we have the noradrenaline. Okay. Now, adrenaline and noradrenaline, they function hand in hand. This one assists the adrenaline in its function. Adrenaline is also called epinephrine. Okay. Then you can also refer to this as norepinephrine. All right. And when you are asked what hormones are actively involved in the fight and flight response, it is adrenaline and noradrenaline. So they are involved in the fight and flight response. No wonder they are also called emergency hormones. So in case you are asked what hormone is referred to as emergency hormone, you can go with adrenaline hormone as the emergency hormone. Okay. Then in terms of function, of course, you know that this hormone tends to make you do what ordinarily you cannot do. That's just one thing about adrenaline. So what does it what are the things associated with the secretion of adrenaline? Of course, some signs or symptoms is during emergency conditions in which you are kind of in danger and you want to run and maybe try to escape from danger. Of course, you know that there are so many physiological changes that will be taking place in your body. Things like there will be an elevation in your glucose level in order to supply energy. And of course, you still have dilation of the pupil so that you have a better vision. And not only that, I think you also have increase in your heart rate, your heartbeat, as well as high blood pressure too. Yes. So those are some conditions that are associated with oversecretion of adrenaline. Of course, you'll be very, very at alert. Then in the case of undersecretion of it, it leads to weakness, leads to fatigue, it leads to you being less at alert, and all those different conditions associated with the undersecretion of adrenaline. All right. So that's that about adrenaline. Then let's progress to looking at the adrenal cortex. Now, in the adrenal cortex, that's under the adrenal gland, we have those hormones that are secreted, which includes, we have the glucocorticoids, and then we also have the mineralocorticoids. Glucocorticoids, then mineralocorticoids, and we also have the androgens. So these are the basic hormones that are secreted by the adrenal cortex. Now, considering these hormones, we are going to look at them one after the other. The first is the glucocorticoids. Now, when we talk about glucocorticoids, we are simply referring to hormones that tends to convert excess non-carbohydrate materials into glucose. So the work of glucocorticoids is basically to converting excess non-carbohydrate materials to glucose, such as the non-carbohydrate materials I'm referring to can come in the form of amino acids as well as glycerol. Okay, so when these ones are converted to glucose, it is the work of the glucocorticoids. And examples of glucocorticoids include we have the cortisol. Cortisol is known to be the primary stress hormone. Please take note of that. So in case you are asked, what is the primary stress hormone that we have in the body? It's called the cortisol. And then we also have the less commonly known one known as the cortisol. Okay, the cortisol. Now basically for this cortisol, which is called the primary stress hormone, it is actually involved in the conversion of excess non-carbohydrate materials to glucose, as well as to reduce inflammation, maybe during wounds, injuries, and probably accidents or disease. All right, so that's its work, to reduce inflammation and to convert excess non-carbohydrate materials to glucose. Now, a situation whereby there is an excess of a secretion of the cortisol, it leads to a condition called hypercortisolism. Hypercortisolism. And some of the symptoms that are associated with hypercortisolism includes an increase in the weight of the body, an increase in the weight of the body, or you can simply put it as weight gain with reduced muscle mass, that is limbs. All right, and then we also have fragile skin, then as well as high blood pressure high blood pressure. So these are conditions that are associated with hypercortisolism. Depending on what is responsible for the cause, you can actually refer to it as Cushing syndrome or Cushing disease. All right. So that's what is also referred to as the hypercortisolism. Then when there is deficiency or a low secretion of cortisol, it can lead to hypocortisolism. Now, hypocortisolism is also called Addison's disease. Hypocortisolism is also called Addison's disease. And some of the symptoms include: one, we have weight loss, and two, we also have reduced low blood pressure. Then we also have weakness, and we also have weakness is also called fatigue. Okay, then we also have abdominal pains. All right, so these are the symptoms that are associated with hypocortisolism. All right, then the next is the female sex hormones. What are the female sex hormones that we have? Now, for the female sex hormones, we have two basic female sex hormones, and they include the estrogen and the progesterone. Now, you have to pay attention to this. Estrogen is considered to be the primary female sex hormone. So in case you are asked what is referred to as the primary female sex hormone, it is the estrogen, and it has diverse functions, of which one of them is that it tends to be responsible for the expression of the secondary sexual characteristics that are seen in females, which includes the redistribution of fats in their bodies, as well as the enlargement of the hips, enlargement of the breast, as well as even their physique. Yeah, it works on their body's chemistry as well. Even sex drive, the libido, of course, it works in that aspect too. Then again, it is also involved in the preparation of a pubertal female for menstruation. All right, so that's the work of estrogen. Then progesterone is called pregnancy hormone. Pregnancy hormone. Now, the reason why it is called pregnancy hormone is that it prepares the uterus or the womb for the implantation of an embryo into it, for the developmental stage of the embryo. Shey you understand? So the thing is this, that this is called pregnancy hormone because it is actively involved during pregnancy. Alright, but the primary female sex hormone still remains estrogen. Estrogen is produced under the influence of the follicle stimulating hormone, don't forget that, and the luteinizing hormone, which is produced from the anterior pituitary gland, which is under the influence of the gonadotropin releasing hormone of the hypothalamus. You understand the point? So it means it is this one that tends to stimulate the production of the estrogen, which is considered to be the primary female sex hormone. All right. Then for progesterone, it is produced by the corpus luteum of the ovaries, and this production is still under the influence of the follicle stimulating hormone as well as the luteinizing hormone that are produced by the anterior pituitary gland. Mind you, this estrogen is produced from the ovary and basically from a follicle that tends to burst open, releasing what? Releasing the hormone. So when the hormone is being released, what is left of the follicle would now form what is known as corpus luteum, which is what produces progesterone. All right, so that's it. Then the next is the male sex hormone. The male sex hormone. The male sex hormone. Now, the major male sex hormone is the testosterone. The testosterone. All right. Now, one thing that you need to know is that the testosterone is responsible for the expression of the secondary sexual features that are seen in males. Everything about the secondary sexual features of males, talking about the growth of hairs in the facial regions as well as the pubic regions, talking about the deepening of the voice, and talking about the development of the male sexual organs and all that. So those are the things that are the work of the testosterone. All right, but mind you, you should know that the testosterone is still under the influence of the luteinizing hormone as well as the FSH. So one thing that you need to know is this: the FSH and the LH are involved in the secretion of both the female sex hormone as well as the male sex hormone. All right. Then one very important thing that you need to take note of is this: many students, they have it in mind that the estrogen and the progesterone, they are just only for females and then they are not found in males. No, estrogen and progesterone are also found in males, but only in trace amount, that small amount. Okay, now in fact the work of estrogen in males is that it helps to foster the libido or sex drive in males, while that of progesterone helps in the synthesis, so it also assists in the synthesis of testosterone in males. All right, when there is an abnormal elevation of these hormones, female hormones in males, you now start seeing the expression of female features in the male, or female characters in the male. All right, then also in females also have the presence of testosterone, but only in trace amounts. But a situation whereby the testosterone is now abnormally elevated in females, it can lead to the expression of male features in such females, and then you now be having what is called virilization in females. Virilization in females, a situation whereby you be having the expression of male features in females, such as the growth of facial hairs, talking about the beard, and also the deepened voice, as well as even acne Yes, some patches on the face region and all that. So those are the things that are being expressed in such females that have an abnormal elevation of testosterone in their bodies. All right. The quick fact: there are some hormones I just need to give you tips on. And what are some of these hormones? Please, you have to be very attentive now. Now, when you are asked what hormone is also called hunger hormone, it is called ghrelin. Ghrelin is an hormone that is also referred to as hunger hormone. Alright, hunger hormone. The function of dopamine, which is one of the hormones that is secreted by the hypothalamus, is that it is actually known to be a feel good hormone, meaning that it is what regulates body's emotion. When you are happy, it is the hormone that is actually released. Okay, and then there is another hormone that is called androgen. Androgen. Now, androgen is simply an hormone that is secreted in the cortex of the adrenal gland, and it is actually responsible for the expression or the development of male sexual features. And again, it's not being expressive in the adrenal cortex. It is produced by the adrenal cortex and transported to the gonads, where it will be converted to useful hormone being used for sex purpose. All right. So they are also male sex hormone. And interestingly, testosterone is an example of androgen. All right. So that's another thing that you need to take cognizance of. Then I actually skipped the mineralocorticoids in the adrenal cortex. When we talk about mineralocorticoids, we are simply referring to hormones that are secreted in the adrenal cortex that are involved in the regulation of salt and water balance in the body. And when we talk about the regulation of salt and water balance, we are referring to two main elements, sodium and potassium. And an example of mineralocorticoid includes, we have the aldosterone. Aldosterone. Now, aldosterone as an hormone helps in the reabsorption of sodium ion into the body's fluid. Okay, and again, it means that it functions in helping to increase the reabsorption of sodium while also increasing the excretion of potassium. So it means a situation whereby you have an excess secretion of aldosterone, it is called hyperaldosteronism, and that condition leads to hypokalemia, in that there will be reduction in the absorption of potassium or reduction in the potassium level present in the body, and vice versa. You understand? So that's one thing that you need to consider also under the mineralocorticoids. So generally, looking at the functions of hormone, we have quite a number of functions of which we have seen them already from our past videos. Of course, you know that hormones, they function in coordination, they also function in homeostasis. Everything that we'll be talking about on hormones is basically revolving around homeostasis and coordination. So it's my hope that you've been able to understand the concept on hormones. So please try to watch this video and always rewatch so as for you to get the clear concept of this video. It's my hope that you've been able to understand a lot about this. So don't forget to subscribe, share this video, make your friends to be aware of it. And for those that are praying for JAMB, when you stay tuned to this channel, I assure you that you will come out with flying colors. So God bless you as you stay tuned to this channel. Thanks for watching.